Welcome back to every naval battle in history. This week, the Punic Wars rage on as we tackle the Battle of Tyndaris, fought off the northern coast of Sicily in 257 BCE. At this point in the Punic Wars, a few things seem clear to me. The Romans of this period were much more dynamic and innovative than we tend to think of later imperial Romans. Centuries of hyperpower status will possibly do that to you. Carthage, on the other hand, seems to have been very slow to get its act together. It was constantly allowing small naval forces to be destroyed in detail, when, if they had been alert to their peril, they would have concentrated their fleet and crushed the Romans with numbers before the Latins' colossal naval building program could overwhelm them. The British in the First World War appear to have been well aware of this danger and countered it. I had wondered if this was a result of them reading Polybius and being alert to the Carthaginian mistakes. But I checked with an ancient mariner whose time in a Royal Naval College is closer to the Battle of Jutland than today, and he doesn't think anyone read Polybius, which is a shame. The Carthaginian scorched earth strategy in Sicily, slow retreat causing maximum damage before hunkering down in fortified ports, had a lot going for it, but was totally predicated on command of the sea. They don't seem to have considered losing control of the sea was a risk to be managed, or they would have concentrated their fleet earlier. It's also noteworthy that the Roman corvus, the beak-like boarding plank which allowed heavily armed Roman soldiers to overwhelm Carthaginians in hand-to-hand combat, appears to have gone tactically uncounted for battle after battle, year after year. Mylae was fought in 260 BCE, and here we are 3 years later with the Carthaginians no closer to having figured out how to deal with it. By way of contrast, when the first tanks were appearing on the battlefield, it was a matter of minutes until artillery was being wheeled up to counter them. In any event, in 257 BCE, Carthage has an element of their fleet happily raiding the Romans from the town of Tyndaris, modern-day Tindari, on the northern coast of Sicily. A consul, remember a consul is vaguely equivalent to if the United States had co-presidents, called Gaius Attalus Regulus Serranus, was in command of a Roman fleet anchored off the coast near Tyndaris when he saw the Carthaginians traipsing past, not in any fighting formation, nor apparently taking any action against the anchored Roman fleet that was watching them. This Regulus is not to be confused with the consul of the same name who died in 225 BCE fighting Celts, nor his cousin, the consul who would lead the Roman fleet the next year. In fact, Gaius Attalus Regulus Serranus came from a family of overachievers, and aside from his cousin, his elder brother, father, and grandfather were also all consuls. Marcus Atilius Regulus is the much more famous Regulus, and more famous than a consul who won a major battle takes some doing, and we will get to him next episode. This whole Regulus thing is almost as bad as the Carthaginians calling everyone Hanno, Hamilcar, or Hannibal. Speaking of which, who was commanding the leisurely Carthaginian fleet sailing along the coast of Sicily without a care in the world on this fine day in 267 BCE? A dude called Hamilcar. Anyway, Regulus got an advance guard of 10 ships underway and charging at the Carthaginians. The Phoenicians in turn realised he'd split his forces and concentrated what they had on the 10 ships, sinking all but Regulus's flagship. Unfortunately for them, by this time the rest of the Roman fleet had caught up, and they sank 8 Carthaginian ships and captured another 10. Another bad day at the office for the forces of Carthage. As for the legacy of the Regulus family, I suspect more than a few of you are thinking of the Regulus cruise missile which marked the true end of the gun-based naval combatant when it entered service in 1955. The Vought website, and they are the manufacturer, claims the missile is named after the star Regulus in the constellation of Leo. Well, the family can't be older than an everlasting star, you might be thinking. Except stars are named by men, and in this case Regulus is a relatively recently named body. Regulus in Latin means prince or little king, and it was named by Nicholas Copernicus sometime in the 15th century, despite it having been one of the Persians' royal stars 2,000 years earlier. I like to think that someone in the US Navy was aware of the family of admiral politicians who'd swept the seas for the Roman Republic when they chose that star to name their missile after. Strap in, folks, we've got lots more to cover as we take on every naval battle in history. Smash those like and subscribe buttons, ring that bell, you don't want to get left behind.